Hello, welcome to the weekly economic snapshot. Recently, the Colorado State Demography Office released its updated forecast for population in Colorado and across Colorado's counties. And today I'm joined by Cindy DeGroen, Senior Demographer with the Colorado State Demography Office. Cindy, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Bill. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, Cindy, what is the State Demography Office forecasting for population growth in Colorado and El Paso County over the coming decades?
Oh, thanks for the question, Bill. So we are projecting that Colorado and El Paso County will continue to grow over the next 30 years. Colorado in particular, we're expecting about 1.5 million more people in addition to where we are today. That'll bring us to about 7.4 million. Out in 2050. And when we think about that relative to the growth we had the last 30 years, we were at about 2.3 million. And so much slower than what we'd seen historically. And for El Paso County, we're at about 750,000 today. And we're anticipating an increase of 250,000 over the next 30 years, bringing us to about 1 million out in 2050. And El Paso County growing slightly faster than the state as a whole. So about 1.1% per year on average over those 30 years, while Colorado's going to be about 0.9% per year over the next 30 years.
That's a lot of people. How did your forecast change from last year?
So last year, and we update our forecast annually to be able to incorporate the estimates that we prepare each year also. And so we'll look at the vital statistics data, so look at the actual births that occurred and the deaths, as well as the data that we have in terms of estimates of net migration, and incorporate those into the forecast. And this past year came in a little bit lower for Colorado and for El Paso County than we had anticipated. And so that number's slightly lower, but the same was true for the U.S. as a whole.
And how do you expect the composition of our population to change?
Such an important question. Thank you. So it's critical, I think, for us to look at the age distribution of any population, especially as we think about it changing moving forward, because it tells us so much about how we might change moving forward, in addition to the types of services that might be demanded by that population. And so for Colorado, I'll start with Colorado. In Colorado as a whole, we're continuing to experience increases in our population age 65 and over. And this makes sense because the first of the baby boomers were born 1946 to 1964, turned 65 just after 2010, and the first of whom turned 75 in 2020. So we're going to continue to see increases in the share of the population over age 65. And so if we go all the way back to 1990, Colorado had about 10% of its population over age 65. By the end of 2030, we're going to be right about 20%. But then if we look at the exact opposite end of the age distribution and think about our number of kids or those residents who are under the age of 18, back in 1990, that was about a quarter of the state's population, so 25%. And that was the case from 1990 all the way through 2010. And then at the beginning of 2010, we started to see a decline in the total fertility rate for Coloradans as well as nationwide. And so the number of births coming in a little bit lower. And then also the increases in the older adult population, creating a decline in the share of the population under age 18. So we're anticipating that by the end of this decade, both age 65 and over as well as under 18, sitting at about 20%. And then those shifts, those transitions in our age distribution will level out after 2030. And so we're thinking that'll be the case. Those numbers will stay relatively stable out through 2050. But it is different for El Paso County. And so when we think about El Paso County, in terms of the share of the population under age 18, experiencing the exact same thing, because we also had declines in fertility rates in El Paso County as well. And so that number in the population under age 18 continuing to decline, the share of the population under age 18 continuing to decline, similar to the state's decline to about 20% by the end of this decade for El Paso County. But the older adult population increasing, but also having the benefit of significant increases in the younger adult population that El Paso County has always had, because El Paso County attracts military, university students, as well as young families to take advantage of job opportunities, as well as opportunities that will be created by older adults retiring from positions that we're anticipating that level won't be quite as significant for El Paso County in terms of the older adult population.
Interesting. So what are the main things that go into making these forecasts?
So within our office, we use an economic demographic modeling system to produce the population projections. So we start by applying fertility rates to women of childbearing age, projected fertility rates, and then projected survival rates for the population as a whole to kind of get to what a base population would be with that natural change of births and deaths. And then we add in a level of net migration that would be consistent with an economic projection that is also done by our office that looks at what kind of demand there will be for labor. And so we'll move in. Our goal is to balance the population supply side of labor with the job side demand for labor moving forward in the projections.
So what's the biggest source of uncertainty in these forecasts?
So it's typically easy to tell in hindsight. Young adults move for opportunity. And there have been frequent opportunities in El Paso County in the past, and we're assuming that's going to continue to be the case for El Paso County moving forward. And so definitely that being the biggest source of uncertainty, though, are the movers to Colorado as a whole as well. When we think about the U.S., and we know the baby boom generation, born 1946 to 1964, as I mentioned earlier, across the U.S. as well. And so there's going to be some pretty stiff competition for the labor that is out there across the U.S.
So, and Cindy, you've announced that you're retiring after 30 years of making these forecasts. In your experience doing this, what has been the biggest surprise?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think for me, I would have to note the significant declines that we saw in teen fertility starting in 2007 in Colorado, where Colorado was actually, so teen fertility had been declining over my entire career, just so slowly. But starting in about 2007, Colorado had the lowest decline in teen fertility of any state in the nation, and we continued to do that all the way through 2013. So a big changes for Colorado that happened really fast.
So we had the biggest decline?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. Where can people go if they want to learn more about the State Demography Office forecasts and other data?
We'd love to have you visit us on our website. You can Google Colorado State Demography Office or go to dola.demography.colorado.gov.
All right. Sounds great. Cindy, thanks for joining us, and thanks for all of your work over the years for the people of Colorado.
Well, thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. We're off next week, so we'll see you in December.